Hi, welcome to the latest episode of NUFC Matters. I'm Steve Rave.
And I'm Malcolm McDonald.
Mal, a 2-0 defeat against West Ham. We both predicted a win. I think we got suckered in with the feel-good factor, but it was a comprehensive performance from West Ham, and I think if Newcastle had been playing until midnight, they wouldn't have scored.
I think you're right. I thought it was an horrendous performance by Newcastle. As I watched, if somebody had said, hold it there and I'll tell you what's going wrong, they've all fallen out in the dressing room. I would have accepted that. That's exactly how it looked to me, that there was no flow between the players, between the play, between their running together.
Yeah.
That all the flow in every conceivable way had disappeared. And I just thought, well, have they had a massive great rook in the dressing room beforehand, and everybody's gone totally flat in their heads. I thought it was an awful display. And the irony is, of course, that Newcastle's good form, has been away from home this season. And now it seems to be changing about, and the form is happening at home. And I really was quite horrified with what I saw against West Ham. Was it the stadium? I don't know. I think it's Newcastle's first time there, isn't it? At the stadium. Is it first or second?
Second, I think, yeah.
Second, but even so, maybe they were overawed with it, but professional footballers shouldn't be overawed. Not by anything, you know. They shouldn't be overawed, whether they're playing on the Sunday morning pitch or at the Bernabeu.
Yeah. Longstaff's injury obviously played its part. It looked like a fairly hard challenge, and he just didn't recover. He didn't recover from it.
But he walked off perfectly all right.
Yeah.
So it seemed, but there was obviously something going on, and the news that we've heard tells us that he's going to be out for some while.
It's a ligament tear, I think that's what they've diagnosed it as, and said, with Longstaff and with the medical team around Newcastle United, they reckon 4 to 6 weeks, but it's going to take a lot longer than that.
At the moment, I don't know which ligament, and I don't know how serious the tear is, so time-wise, it all depends on just how serious that tear is, I think. And it's such a shame for him, because he really was in such wonderful form. And how is he going to be replaced? That's got to be a real headache for Rafa, I think.
Well, look at the options. You've got Shelby, you've got Diarmi, you've got Key. Who do you see getting into that midfield at the weekend? Will he stick with Hayden?
Hayden's just starting to do a little bit that's getting me on side.
Yeah.
Where I've been hugely critical of him up to just recently. Hayden and Diarmi, it might work. It might well work. I would like to see Diarmi getting forward an awful lot more. Diarmi was looking a very ordinary player when he was alongside Shelby. Because Shelby would drop right back, he'd go and play amongst the centre halves, and Diarmi, to keep in contact with him, had to go into such a negative, withdrawn position that even when Diarmi looked, the midfield was that remained was just wide and well ahead, and the forwards were 40, 50, 60 yards ahead. And Shelby was causing almighty problems. I absolutely abhor seeing a midfielder going back in amongst the centre halves and starting to play the ball from there.
Yeah.
And it's all because, and the reason why I hate it so is that the midfielder is saying to the centre halves, you can't play. I've got to come back here and do your job with the ball. And that's unkind. And Newcastle's 3 centre halves, they can play. They can play each of them, and if Shelvey were to stay much further forward, yeah, fine, put him in the side. He and Diame, they could really do it well. But as soon as Shelvey starts to drop off, you've got to get rid. He's got to go, and it drags everybody down. And also with Shelvey, there's always that fear that he's going to go and do something silly and get sent off and leave the side with 10 men. And in this day and age, you can't go a man down. And Newcastle, they're still desperate for every single point that they can get.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that Rafa will be prepared to take the chance on Shelvey. So I'm looking at maybe Hayden and Diame together, possibly Key, maybe Key and Diame. But at least Rafa's got a choice to make. But I honestly feel that Shelvey, he's got himself into a rut.
Yeah.
Here now, and it wouldn't surprise me if he leaves the club in the summer.
Big talking points this week. Mike Ashley again. Latest PR spin that the club's now no longer for sale. Mike Ashley sick again of time wasters. Peter Kenyon. I mean, when will this ever end? What's your take on that?
It was never for sale.
Yeah,
that's my take. It was never for sale in the first place, and I think that by telling supporters it was for sale, he was trying to appease those that don't like him being involved at their club. But he's going to be involved for a long time because he makes huge money out of Newcastle United. And he's a businessman, and he's not going to say, "Oh well, I'll say goodbye to that."
After the West Ham game, obviously Rafa, it's going to go on and on and on until there's an answer either way. Asked about his contract situation, Rafa batted it off really by just saying that from his point of view, his focus is to keep Newcastle United in the Premier League and get the results that he needs to do that. So, do you expect Rafa to sign a new contract?
I do, and the reason why I say that is that I think his options are so limited that he would rather put up with all the stuff and nonsense that he gets from the owner rather than actually be out of a job. He's very limited as to where he can go, and I say that because his family live in the Wirral, and when he was managing Real Madrid in his homeland, in the homeland of his family, that all his family said, "Well, no, you go to Spain. We're staying in the Wirral."
Yeah,
that we're getting educated. We've got jobs to do. We've got a lovely family home, and we're very happy here. So, Tala Rafa, and he was managing Real Madrid, and when he wasn't working, was on his own in a hotel room.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have been pleasant for him at all. He wouldn't want to allow that to happen again. And so he's got the situation exactly how he wants it with Newcastle, except that I'm sure he'd prefer somebody else to be the owner of the club. But nevertheless, he's earning good money out of it, and I think he'd rather take the brickbats and the constant withdrawal of funds and stuff like that, and he'll get on with it. He's a terrific manager, and I have to say that I think Ashley, whatever people think about Mike Ashley, he is not daft. And he knows he's got an absolute top quality manager, and he will do what he can to get Rafa to sign a new contract. And I'm sure he'll make all sorts of promises at some point. to Rafa. Whether he keeps them or not, we wait and see. He might keep some and not others. I think that's the way that he goes about his business. If Rafa were not to sign, where would you go, Mr. Ashley? Who would you go for? Who would want to come and work with you?
I'm not sure I want to go down that road.
Exactly.
We've seen some of the past candidates.
Exactly. It's not a pleasant route to go down.
No.
And it wouldn't be a good route for Ashley to suddenly take on. That's why I think come the end of the season, he will do whatever he can to satisfy Rafa and keep him on.
I think looking at social media, the fans are obviously celebrating every time a managerial position gets filled in the Premier League. Obviously, West Ham was supposed to be the team that he was potentially going to go to. Then Leicester lost their manager. The big one, I think, and this is me throwing my hat into the ring, is that if Pochettino leaves Tottenham and goes to Manchester United, which seems to be getting less of an option by the day with the way Ole is doing at Man U, but that potentially could be an avenue for Rafa Benitez. I mean, a big club steeped in history, new stadium. Money will then be available, I would imagine, now that the new stadium's being built. Could be something which Rafa would find of interest. But that's just a thought.
Yeah, I think Tottenham will do everything they can to hold on to Pochettino. And I think that the guy running Tottenham, he would want somebody younger than Rafa. So, there's a possibility, but I don't think it's a strong one.
Okay. Other big news coming out of Newcastle this week was finally the club have come to the settlement with Peter Beardsley. Strange way of doing it. Peter's a club legend, and we know that this regime has had issues with previous club legends over the last 11 years, but this one's a strange one because I think it's thrown the debate about alleged bullying and alleged racism, and there's a lot of things being thrown at Peter, which me personally I find unfair. And ultimately, there's been no guaranteed decision. They haven't said this is what's happened. It's obviously all been signed off. There's been disclosure signed, but I just think it leaves a nasty taste in the mouth that it's taken 12 months to get to this stage.
Yes, they've let it drag on far too long, and it's doing nobody any favours whatsoever. Nobody's coming out of this smelling of roses.
No,
and that's sad. And really, it goes all the way back, I think, to 2000. So it's been running for 2 decades now. What I found when I managed Fulham, and I had to do a lot of quick learning. It was my first job, and I was very young for a manager. But the one thing I learned about youth is you need to treat them with kid gloves. You need to really G them up all the time.
Yeah,
they're full of self-doubt, teenage kids, and so you've got to lift their confidence sky high. You've got to put faith into the parents as well, that what's happening for their son is the right thing, and that they are going to go on and do well in their chosen career. And when I went in at Fulham, I had a youth team coach who was a bit of a bully. And you can maybe get away with that with the first team squad. But kids, no. They go into a shell, and then the next thing, they don't want to come in. They just want to stay at home. And so that coach didn't last 5 minutes with me. And what I found I had to do was I had to go to players' houses and talk to them and say, come on now, everything's going to change. Come on back into the fold. And they were in trepidation, some of them, about it. You could see that it had made them dreadfully nervous and concerned and worried, and the parents as well. And so I had to sit down with the families as well as the young player, and I was bringing these players back in. Within 18 months of me doing that, Paul Parker went into the first team. Within 20 months, Jeff Hopkins went into the first team. And these were players who just didn't want to come in. And, you know, they were being berated for, you know, if Jeff Hopkins was tall, you know, and he was getting told off for being tall, and Paul Parker was black, he was getting told off for being black, you know, whatever they were, it was a form of bullying. And I knew I had to do something. And the youth development officer that I had there, he suggested a guy who I'd seen play for Fulham when I was a kid watching. And he was the reserve left back to Jimmy Langley.
Right.
And this guy came in. Now, he had a very successful company. He was a multi-millionaire. He was self-made. But he came in and he just cuddled and loved the kids and built them up, made them feel 7 feet tall, and got them playing football. And people were coming along and watching the youth side play, and they were much younger. They were sort of 16-year-olds in there. And they were just going, wow, what great football. Mm-hmm. And the kids were loving it.
Yeah.
And that's the way, I think, to get the very best out of them. You don't pick a fight with a kid.
No.
You put your arm around them, love them and cuddle them, and say, and tell them how brilliant they are, how good they are, but how much better they could become if they really work at it.
I think with Peter, of course, you know, he's a club legend, and you know he goes with the club's best wishes, which is nice, and you know you should never forget that no matter what's happened and what the outcome was, that Peter Beardsley was a great servant at Newcastle United, not just once but twice. And for me, one of the best players I've ever seen in the black and white shirt, personally.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't disagree at all on that. In fact, he was one of the finest players I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Great players very rarely make good coaches. And there was one thing that I realised that you must never ever do, particularly with kids, where you shouldn't do it with anybody when you're coaching, and that is to say, oh, for heaven's sake, give me the ball, I'll show you how to do it. Mm-hmm. Biggest no-no. You have to work with the individual and let them work on their skills and show their skills off ultimately, and they have to work it out for themselves. You, with a ball at your feet, couldn't copy Peter Beardsley if you tried.
You're not wrong.
Right. What kid could?
No. Yeah.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
And so you have to just make the kid work at his abilities.
Yeah.
Not copy somebody else's. Peter, maybe he was a bit abrasive with kids. We don't really know. We don't know what was happening on the training ground. I know that he and Terry McDermott fell out over Terry's son in all of this. But
two separate cases, to be fair. And I mean, I think the modern day footballer now is mollycoddled, is, you know, I think it's a completely different situation now. And I mean, getting away from Peter, just in general.
Right.
You know what I mean? The modern
Peter
day footballer
Beardsley is probably an extremely good coach, but with older people. You know, with the more senior professionals who, if Peter Beardsley, if the coach has a pop at the senior pro, and the senior pro will have a go back.
Yeah.
Kids don't. Kids, they become full of self-doubt, and then they stop playing, and they stop training, and they stop wanting to be there. You know, maybe Newcastle left Peter there for far too long. Maybe because of the experience that he had as a player, they should have been pushing him up the levels.
Yeah.
But it seems that they pushed him down.
Yeah.
not the right thing to do with somebody of the calibre of Peter Beardsley.
Finally, Everton, a club that Beardsley played for, of course. But Everton visit St James's Park on Saturday for a traditional 3 o'clock kick-off. They're sitting in 10th place now, 37 points. Newcastle, 31 points.
Yeah.
But it's it's a tough game. The way that they set out their stall against Liverpool, who were obviously chasing the league, was a bit worrying for me.
And I thought Liverpool had played quite well against Everton last weekend. But watching Everton, I've seen 2 terrific performances and quite different performances this week.
Yeah.
One of the best attacking and performances and just controlling the whole 90 minutes around the whole of the rectangle of the pitch. That goes to Ajax against Real Madrid. They were absolutely incredible. I just sat bog-eyed, open-mouthed, watching what they were doing. And that came a few days after having seen Everton. Everton are hugely well organised, really well organised. Newcastle are going to really have to work so hard. There is one thing that can beat that kind of organisation, and it's pace. And so I would hope that this week that Rafa has been working on the training ground, getting the players to understand the pace of Almiron, and working to get the pass going at precisely the right time, at the right pace, to get him beyond the back four.
Yeah.
And once that happens, all good defending breaks down. And Almiron could be a match winner, and it's about time it all happened for him. He's right there on the precipice of becoming a real hero in Newcastle, I think. And hopefully it's going to happen against Everton. I really think that he is the one player who can take Everton apart. They are so well organised.
Score prediction, Matt?
Almiron 2, Everton 1.
Good stuff. I'm going for 1-0 Almiron as well, so let's see where we are next week. Great stuff as always. Thanks very much for tuning in to When UFC Matters. We'll be back again next week.
We certainly will. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.